you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time,
Good morning and welcome to the June the 13th, 2023 edition of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and we thank you for tuning in to today's program. To join the program, to be a participant, just call this number, 516-453-9921. Press the number 1 button if you have a brief comment or a question for Mr. Fuller. You can do that. You can also Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. Also, if you are a first-time caller, you can call that number, 516-453-9921. And when you do that, give the call screener your name and tell them that you are a first-time caller. And we have a special program set up just for you, and you will be heard. You can also join the chat room by going to blogtalkradio.com, and you want to make sure that you click on where it says programs. You click that bad boy on, and then shows will come up, and you want to make sure that you click on the Produce Justice Show. And after you do that, a little box will come in where you may join the chat room. Okay. This coming Friday, which will be June the 16th at 8 a.m., Mr. Fuller will be on the Carl Nelson Show. That's June the 16th at 8 a.m., and we also have it set up where you can get or hear Mr. Fuller by getting on the ProduceJustice.com website. It's been set up so that you can hear Mr. Fuller at ProduceJustice.com this coming Friday at 8 a.m., the June the 16th, 2023. That's the Carl Nelson Show. Okay, I think that is all that I have this morning. So let's get on with the show. Let me say good morning, Mr. Fuller, and how are you?
Good morning. I'm still learning.
Okay, Mr. Fuller is still learning. Okay. For those new to the program, we have a segment that we designate as the thoughts, what's on the mind of Mr. Neely Fuller, the thoughts and expressions on the mind of Neely Fuller Jr. Mr. Fuller, it's been a week since we have spoken to you. What is on your mind this morning?
The same thing that was on my mind last week at the same time, and the subject is still the same. It's always the same, according to my point of view. It's what we call loosely the race issue. Because if the race issue, by whatever definition you want to give it, is the key to solving all other problems. You solve that problem, and I have a slang expression that if you solve the race problem, all the other problems in the world you can solve on your day off. Now, that might be, sort of a comic quip, if you want to look at it that way. But is that really the truth? And it probably is, because there are other problems other than the race problem. But you're definitely not going to solve these other problems, the conclusion I came to many, many decades ago, without solving the race problem. Why? Because that's the one that if you're a person of color, and that's whom this program is addressing on planet Earth in 2023, if you're not talking about or thinking about or making some kind of plans for dealing with, if you want to use that expression, the race problem, you don't have a plan for dealing with anything, because the color of your skin says that you're a target. That's right out of the womb, or even before coming out of the womb. Now, that's either true or false. Now, that's what this program is about. Otherwise, this program serves absolutely no purpose at all, because it's all about, if you're talking about problems of the world, you better be talking about the race problem in every area of activity that affects you, in every plan that you will ever make. And that is, as applies to, if you're a person of color, economics, how you use your time and energy, which is basically economics, which includes all the money you will ever have. The race problem is going to be the center of what happens to that money. How you're going to be able to use it if you can get it. And that'll be the first problem, trying to get some money. Most black people are interested in having money. So the race problem is going to be very, very, very influential in you having money or not having any. Whether you're in Nigeria, whether you're in Ghana, whether you're in Kingston, Jamaica, Brazil, San Francisco, Chitlin and Switch, Iowa, or wherever you are. Black people are very sensitive about having money, because we very seldom have enough. So you're looking at the race problem. If you're even thinking about getting money, look at the color of your skin. Go look in the mirror. That's going to have a whole lot to do with how much money you get and where it comes from, who's going to give it to you, and for what. If you say that you're pretty well squared away yourself, are you really? When you got cousins, uncles, and nieces, nephews, sisters, and brothers, it applies to them too, if they are people of color. Where are they going to get it? Because they may, some of them, kind of halfway rely on you to get it. You say, well, I'm pretty well squared away, so I don't talk, how much money does Neely Fuller have? Does he have enough? Nowhere near enough to keep up with the things that I have to keep up with. Well, why don't I have it? One reason, I don't know how. That's the only thing I can say and be telling the truth. I don't know why. How, rather, to get it. I know why I don't have it. That's what this program is about. The color issue. From the time that my mother was in the hospital, issuing me into this world, she had that problem. The person that I call my father had that problem. Because first of all, he wasn't qualified to be my father. He wasn't qualified. Why wasn't he qualified to be my father? Yet I called him my father. Because no black male on the planet Earth can be a father to anybody in the system of white supremacy. It's not going to happen in the system of white supremacy. You cannot be that. All of the fathers of every black person on the planet in 2023 are white. Because when you're subject to the system of white supremacy, the fathers and mothers, if you're a person of color, are all white. Illegitimate mothers and fathers. Why? Because they're taking care of you. You're not taking care of yourself. You go to them for everything in all areas of activity. So, in answer to the question, what's on my mind? Same things on my mind the month before that, and the month before that, and the years before that, and every year since. I've had a little bit of sense, because that's what's supposed to be on every non-white person's mind every morning, the system of white supremacy. Every place on the planet. Otherwise, you're not thinking in depth. You're thinking all right. Oh, yeah, you're all over the place, just like I am. But if you're not thinking about replacing the system of white supremacy with the system of justice, you're thinking about going down a blind alley, either directly or indirectly. Now, that's the last statement I made is either true or false.
Okay.
That's my answer.
All righty. That's on your mind today. Mr. Fuller, when you when you recognize, or when did you first recognize that you were a victim of the system of white supremacy?
When I first learned that there are white people on the planet, and that there are black people on the planet, and that people were classified by their skin color more than anything. Mm-hmm. And I don't know the exact date or anything like that, but I just know that we were called colored people, Negroes, African Americans, that there were newspapers out that said, this Pittsburgh Courier, but it wasn't about Pittsburgh. It was about color. Chicago Defender, and this, they call them Negro newspapers, or colored people's papers. In Muskogee, Oklahoma, we had the Muskogee Independent, a colored newspaper, a newspaper for colored people, or for Negroes, and that was me. And I'm thinking, why are they calling me that? I'm colored. I'm a Negro. Say, because you're a servant to the system of racism. That's how it all came out. Mm-hmm. So they don't talk about our problems. So we have to have newspapers that tell us about what problems we have and how to feel about them mostly. Very little about what to do about it. And I say, well, what is it I'm supposed to be doing? I'm supposed to be, they said that I'm a person. So then I went to a colored school. What am I doing going to a colored school? What's a colored school? A school for colored people, where you learn how to do things that colored folks are supposed to do. Because you can't do what the white folks do. And you are not in school with them. So they got a special school for you to go to where you can do what? And little by little, where I can serve people who are classified as white. That's what I'm supposed to learn in this school. That's what this school is about. But I'm told, so to keep my feelings from being hurt, and I'm just like everybody else. I'm just like everybody else. How come I'm not with everybody else? And that's how I learned.
Mm-hmm.
And little by little, when I asked questions, people would give answers. And then sometimes they say, well, we don't talk about that. And I got a lot of that. And I'm still getting it. As long as I've been here, I'm still getting those kind of answers. I don't want to talk about that. Talk about something else. I hear that from 40 and 50-year-old people right today. You should find something else to talk about. I've been hearing that like forever. Anytime I start talking about the race issue, ain't nothing you can do about it. So stop talking about it. Talk about something else. Something else like what? That's my question. And then I discovered something. The question. And that's something we talk about right here on this program. Questions and answers. It took me forever to figure out how to solve any kind of problem. It's through the process of questions and answers. I should have learned that from day one. Somebody should have told me that. Just that simple thing. For all your life, any problems you have is going to be in the form of a question if you're going to solve that problem. And you keep asking questions. Be an excellent listener, which I was hard-headed about that, but not deliberately. I just didn't have a tendency to ask questions because nobody taught me that. They taught me to do just the opposite. Stop asking so many questions, boy. Shut up. Stop asking so many questions. That's dangerous to anybody. For anybody to be ever told that. Stop asking questions. When the key to solving every problem is in the form of a question. One question right after another. 10,000 questions, if necessary, about one thing. 10,000 questions about one thing. And when the answers start coming, that's how you get smart. Not by thinking you know everything. You know everything that you need to know. A lot of old folks told me that.
Yes, sir.
You don't need to know nothing about that. You need to know about everything. You're in the world with everything.
All righty. Let's go to the phone lines here. Don't forget, the number to call into the show is 516-453-9921. And you can press the number 1 button to ask a question. And we're going to go to New York City and Blacktop. Get ready, Blacktop. Let me see if I can get this thing over here. Okay, Blacktop, you are on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead with your question. Blacktop? Okay, Blacktop, you are on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
How you doing this morning?
There you go. Oh, good. Go ahead, Blacktop.
Okay, so recently I heard a conversation between a black male victim and a racist suspect. In the conversation, the racist suspect said that black people haven't contributed much to American society other than fighting to be a part of it. That is American society. He said that what's going on is that we are good at what we do, which is, playing sports, playing basketball, football. So the issue is not overall whites being superior, but it's blacks being inferior at everything else. Now, what would be the codified response to that?
And the statement that was made was what?
Okay, let me say it again. This gentleman said that black people have not contributed much to this society, one we live in, the concept of the United States of America. And they only fought to be part of the society that whites created. And they have not...
Let's deal with the first part first. The statement was made that black people did not contribute to society. Is that correct?
Yes.
Well, that called for another question, a question about the statement, since no question was asked, I guess. According to the code, you ask a question. What do you mean black people did not contribute to society? And let them explain in detail what that means, because contribute what? See, that's the question. That's what I just said just a few minutes ago. Enough questions. You're supposed to have enough questions in order to get enough answers. If you don't have enough questions, you're not going to get enough answers. That's just the laws of the universe. So the statement was made, so that called for question time. Did you understand the question? Because I didn't understand the question, and I don't understand it now.
Okay.
So that's what the code says about that. Some more questions should have been asked right there. And what are you talking about? Black people did not contribute to society. What do you mean by society? So you got to pick through every word when somebody makes a statement. Black people need to get in the habit of that. You go over every word that somebody says to you about anything. Because the white supremacists will throw buckets of words at you. And you're supposed to understand what they're talking about, which you should understand what they're talking about. But the only way to get that understanding, you should have, say, I got about 15 questions to ask about this word society. Contributing to society. Who is society? Contributing what? So you probably got about 8 or 10 questions right off the top about what he's saying or she was saying, whatever the person was saying. So if I understand what they're trying to say or what I understand with what they did say, black people contribute to the support of the system of white supremacy because that's the only government on the planet. Now, I just made a statement that calls for questions. Is white supremacy the only government on the planet that's worthy of being called a government? Yes or no? I say yes. All the rest of the so-called governments, they're just words. Number one government on planet Earth in 2023, and that's the system of white supremacy. True or false? That comes down to it now. That's how you fast forward this kind of conversation without using a whole lot of words. I just made a flat statement. That statement is either true or false.
Okay.
And so an answer to the question based on what I understand the question is, oh yeah, black people contribute to the system of white supremacy by supporting it, by being the reason for it. That's the reason for white supremacy, black people. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a need to say it's white supremacy. It's white dominating everything that's considered black, which includes brown, red, yellow, everything with color. White, in the racial context, is non-color. And the white supremacists let you know it. We are not colored people. We are people without color. And our power is associated with that.
Okay, what's the second part of your question there, Blacktop?
Okay, now this is the gist of it. He was saying that the issue, and this is the white supremacist talking, he's saying the issue is not white supremacy, that black people need to stop saying that. He said that the issue is black inferiority. Now, my question is, what is the codified response to a white supremacist who says the issue is not white supremacy, but the issue is black inferiority?
Okay, then you ask questions. And the question is, inferior how? And inferior as compared with what? What do you mean by inferior? According to whom? So that white person, if I was talking to him, I think, these are the questions I would ask. Inferior. Okay, when you say inferior to what? Inferior to a tree? Inferior to a rock? Inferior to what? And don't give them the answer of what you think is the answer. That's very important. Sometimes I have a tendency to do that. That's the key to people having a conversation rather than an argument. Once you ask a question, you don't help the person with the answer. You already got your answer, so you don't need that. You want their answer, and that's because they're the ones who raised the question. All right? So you want them to explain everything that they're talking about. They made the statement. Black people are inferior. Oh, okay. Inferior to what? To a rock? To a mountain? To the ocean? And what do you mean by inferior? Inferior to a canoe? To a kayak? To a street corner? Inferior to what? Or to whom? To a bear? And don't help them with the answer. Sit back and wait on the answer. Are black people inferior to a bear? Inferior to what, sir? These are the questions I would have asked. I have questions. I can't answer a question without understanding what's being said. And all of us tend to do that. Until I stop doing it. That's why I belabor answering a question even on this program. It's very annoying to the people who are listening when I do that. But I found out that I have to do that because words, so many words, are not explained.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why a lot of black people drop out of school. We sit there and the teacher's saying this and saying that, and you're saying, I got problems. What is this teacher saying that will solve my problems? I know every black student sitting in every school right now, anywhere in the world, saying, am I hearing anything that is solving my problem? See, because that's the whole purpose for going to school, if the school is set up correctly. And I'm not blaming the teachers. The teachers have to follow what they have been taught to teach. And in the system of white supremacy, and I'm just throwing this out, the white supremacists teach black people to teach other black people nothing about what to do about white supremacy.
Okay. All right, Blacktop. Thank you for your call. Let's break it right here. You're listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And we thank you for doing that. Now, to get in contact with the show, just call 516-453-9921. Press the number 1 button that you can be recognized for a call or quick comment. If you're a first-time caller, also call that number and give the call screener your name. As a matter of fact, anybody that calls in, make sure you give your name. Thank you, Brother Muko. Thank you, Leona, and thank you, Corey, for doing that. Yeah, so that way I can identify you. Mr. Fuller will be on the Carl Nelson Show this coming Friday. That's right, Friday at 8 a.m. That is the June the 16th at 8 a.m. And you can get that here, Mr. Fuller, on this site at ProduceJustice.com. It's been set up. All you have to do is tune in, just like you're tuning in to today's show. And Mr. Fuller is scheduled to be on the Carl Nelson Show Friday at 8 a.m. So make your adjustments to that. Okay. The book that Mr. Fuller has been referring to, that you can also get at ProduceJustice.com, is the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. And we say that and push that because there are a lot of people that listen and call in all the time, so they need to know the publication of that book and where you can get it, which is at ProduceJustice.com. And so, therefore, we say it a lot so that people can get the book. And a lot of people have been getting the book, and we appreciate that very, very much. Okay, let's move on here. Let's go into the Midwest. Get ready, Leona. We are getting ready to tune you in here. Let's see if we can get it up there, right there. Oh, wait a minute. There you go. Leona, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. Two quick questions, if you don't mind, Mr. Fuller. I wanted to confirm that you were going to be on the Carl Nelson Show on Friday, this Friday versus Thursday. I know normally on the Carl Nelson Show they have this thing called Free Your Mind Friday, what have you, but it is, in fact, you will be on this Friday at 8 a.m. versus a Thursday or anything like that. Is that correct, sir?
Well, I was told it was supposed to be June the 16th.
Yes, sir.
What is June the 16th?
Let me see here. June the 16th
Friday.
is a Friday. Yes, sir. Okay. Just want
That's
clarification.
what I was told, June the 16th.
Mm-hmm.
Not June the 15th
Mm-hmm.
or the 17th. It was June the 16th.
Okay, no problem. I'll be tuning in.
But maybe it is. I'll have someone double check it and triple check it because that's very important that the days don't get mixed up. Sometimes they do get mixed up right from the start.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, I was also told June the 16th this morning, Mr. Fuller, and I questioned the same way Leona did. Usually, it has been in the past, on a Thursday.
On a Thursday, yes.
Yeah, it had been in the past, but I was surprised that the 16th was mentioned, which is on a Friday, June the 16th. So
well, that needs to be double checked by everybody.
Okay, I'll have Robert look into that.
Yes, in order for confirmation.
Okay, all right.
Because a part of this program is reduce mistakes. In fact, eliminate all mistakes.
Okay. So I'll have Robert confirm that.
Black people are notorious for making mistakes.
Yes, sir. Well, I'll have Robert confirm that, and then he'll let me know, and then I will again address the studio audience. Go ahead, Leona, with your question now.
Yes, Mr. Fuller, sir. Listen, I'm wondering. Here's the deal. Many a times, I've heard there have been people driving, and you can hear the music coming out of the speakers of their car while they're driving. You can hear them almost quarter mile away coming. There have been times when I've been in a grocery store parking lot, and there's someone sitting in the car, and their music is blasting for a little bit. And I'm just curious, do you ever, first of all, do you have a theory or some ideas as to why people may or may not do that? I've heard Dr. Welsing talk about, on a recording, talk about her theory about why people blast that music like that, that it is in response to the system of racism, white supremacy on some level. And also I've heard that music and sounds can be used as means of torture in some environments. So I guess my question is, do you have any ideas or thoughts as to, why you think people may behave like that in terms of blasting music in cars or apartments or what have you? Any idea?
Pay attention to me.
Okay.
Pay attention to me. Nobody pays me no attention. That's all that's going on. In my opinion, I've thought about it. I've heard it. And I say, why do black people do that more than anybody else? That's the first question I ask. Because I pay attention to things. Not as much as I should. Sometimes I don't even know what to pay attention to, most of the time. But I think everybody's picked up on that. And some of us who have wondered why other people do it, we've done it ourselves. But we don't ask, why am I doing this? Why am I at 3 o'clock in the morning? Well, that's why I bought this car, so that it won't have no, convertible. So in the summertime, I can really hit people. I got some speakers in here that'll reach all the way to, to the moon. So I'm going to turn it up as loud as I can with what I choose to be on it. I'm going to choose the sounds I want coming out of this vehicle. It's not going to be about this and that and the other. It's going to be about something that I chose. I'm going to put my own tapes and CDs or whatever it is on there. And I'm going to let people know that I got this. Pay attention to me. I mean, wake up if you're asleep. Because I'm going to park right up under your window. And I'm going to turn it up as loud as it'll go. It's not just for me. This is for you. This is for you, chump. Listen to this. Or whomever they're addressing it to. But how do you find out? You ask the person a question who's doing it, if you know them enough to ask. Why do you have it so loud? Whom is it for? Is it for you or is it for everybody? Are you rendering a public service? There's lots of questions you can ask if you know the person very real well. Why do you do that? And don't help with the answer. Let them answer. But I'm saying it's for, like Laurence Olivier is reported to have said when he was asked, why is he an actor? Why did he choose to go into the acting business, to become a movie star, become a stage star up on the stage? He said, all actors are saying one thing to the world. Look at me. Look at me. Look at me. He said, you got it all. That's the answer to why I am an actor. I want somebody to look at me. Look at me. Look at me. He said 3 things, and all those things were the same. That was actor Laurence Olivier. So I've been told when he was asked, why is he an actor? He says everybody got a little bit of it in them. Look at me. Look at me. It's like a baby coming out of the womb. That's all it is. Look at me. Listen to me. That's why babies yell out. Listen to me. I'm here. Muddy Waters had a song which he repeated in the lyrics. I'm here. Everybody knows I'm here. That's what those speakers are about at 3 o'clock in the morning. And you hear that sound 6 blocks away. That's all it's about. What else can it be about, logically speaking? Look at me. Don't be looking at nothing else. Look at me. I'm here. Don't be ignoring me. Best way for me to tell you I'm here is to wake you up at 3 o'clock in the morning when you got to go to work.
Okay. All right, Leona from the Midwest, thank you very much for your call. Okay, let's go to Milwaukee. Get ready, Corey. Get ready to tune you in here. And you are in, Corey. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. I'm just going to get out of the wind real quick. Okay. Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Fuller, my question was, I've noticed that when talking about justice or eliminating the system of white supremacy, many people just don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about problems either. They don't want to talk about anything that has any substance or relevance. And I noticed this a lot with white people and suspected white supremacists. Is this because of people just simply want to feel good?
Yes. That's the conclusion I came to in answer to the question, yes. That's the answer. People want to feel good. That's why fentanyl is so popular and heroin. People want to feel good all the time, whatever they mean by feeling good. And people will do anything to keep them feeling, what? Bad. So that's to be expected. And talking about the race issue, well, who's going to feel good about that? And that's the question. Who's going to feel good about talking about racism? How can you feel good about anything about racism? Unless you're a racist. Oh, yeah, now you can feel real good because you're successful. That's the most successful business that the world has ever seen. Being a white supremacist and good at it. And not just talking about it, I'm saying you're it. People look up to you. Look at me. Look at me. Look at me. All you black people trying to get in an old rickety boat with your black selves, your little black babies in your arms. And do what? Try to find out somebody, which way did they go, who looks like me. I'm white. And you are saying to your little black children, I got to find some white folks with your black self. Well, I got to go where the white folks are. Well, you around folks, they're black, but they're people. And what's wrong with being among a whole ocean of black people, millions of them? I mean, you got plenty of company. Yeah, but it's miserable here. It's miserable. Everywhere you find us, everybody got a whole lot of complaints, and nobody got no solutions to nothing. And I got to get out of here. Which way did the white folks go? God help me, find some white folks. So the white person looks at that and say, boy, hey, I must be somebody. All these dark people always want to come where I am. If I take off running from them, they'll catch up with me. I mean, what's going on here? Must be something magic about me. That's what white people think, and they got a right to think that, from what I've seen, because that's what I see happening. That's what I hear happening.
Okay.
I don't hear about black people seeking out no black people, and I definitely don't hear white people seeking out black people, except to capture them and say, I got some things for you to do, because you don't know what to do it yourself. You ain't got no sense at all about what to do except just jump up and down and spin around on your head in a circle. For solving problems, you don't know with your black self and your black brain. You can't solve no problem without coming to me.
Yes, sir. All righty. Thank you, Corey from Milwaukee. All righty, let's go to the Baltimore Care Unit Specialist. That's Brother Muko. Brother Muko, let me tune you in here. And there's buffering there. There you go, Brother Muko. Good morning, Brother Muko.
Greetings, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller. First of all, I wanted to say, Mr. Bobby, I want to thank you for you and your book club for reading and taking interest in that book, Without
Yes, sir.
Sanctuary. I've had that book for about the better part of 15 years. I think I got my first copy. I gave a copy to my daughter. I gave her my copy to do a book report on the American lynchings, and her grandmother threw it away. Threw the book away.
Oh,
so
my
I
goodness.
just wanted to say to you, yeah, you are absolutely right when you say that book is really disturbing to some people, as it should be, I think, according to counter-racist logic.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So I wanted to make a statement and ask a question.
Yes, sir.
To Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller, I've made a term, a compensatory term, I think, called confusionary tactics. And according to counter-racist logic, confusionary tactics, to me, are tactics that white supremacists specialize in to confuse the victims of racism, white supremacy. So my question to you is, according to counter-racist logic, knowing that white supremacists use confusionary tactics to confuse the victims of racism, white supremacy, is it logical that when a non-white person comes in contact with an admitted or suspected white supremacist, to ask them for a list of white supremacists that practice racism, white supremacy? And I want to stay on the line after that, Mr. Bobby, but
okay.
I'll stay off the line and get my answer to that.
Okay.
I didn't get that last part of the question.
Brother Muko, could you repeat that again?
Yes, the last part of the question is, according to counter-racist logic, knowing that white supremacists use confusionary tactics on victims of racism, white supremacy, is it logical for non-white people, when they encounter suspected or admitted white supremacists, to ask for a list of white supremacists that practice racism, white supremacy?
Yes, you can ask a white person anything about racism, because some white people, I don't know the numbers, the exact numbers, know something or may know something about white supremacy, any questions that you ask. So you can ask them any question after getting permission from the white person to ask the question. That'll be the first question. Can I ask you about something about racism, sir or ma'am? Because they may not want to talk about it. And you don't want to have an argument about that. You want that to be clear in the beginning. You always want to be both polite and courteous to anyone that you want to talk to about anything, whether the person is white or non-white, male, female, whomever, kin folks, whomever. Ask for permission to get a conversation started about that subject, because not everybody, like somebody just mentioned about a grandmother that threw a book away about racism, evidently she didn't want to talk about it. And she didn't want the other person to even read the book, evidently. Throw that in the trash can. Get rid of that. That's dangerous to even have to think about that or something. The grandmother could give the reason why the book is being thrown away. That would be the first thing to find out. Grandma, why are you throwing the book away? And let her answer. Get her answer. Don't try to give her an answer. And it's the same way with this question that's being raised now. First of all, you ask for permission, and whatever answer you get from the white person, that's their answer. And don't argue about the answer that you get. That's very important. That's code. That's a part of the compensatory code. Don't ever do that. Don't argue about the answer that you get. Have the next question ready. This is how you have a conversation that doesn't turn into an argument. Because you don't want an argument. You don't even start talking to anybody in order to get an argument. Arguments are something that's never supposed to happen. You don't argue about anything. You have conversation if you're going to communicate one person to another. That's code. Rock solid. No arguments. Questions and answers. That's it. That will always take everybody right where they need to be. Not everybody where they want to be, but it'll take everybody where they should be. Everybody who's taking part in a discussion, you might say. That's a conversation, not an argument.
Okay. All right, Brother Muko, did you have a comment? You said.
Yes, I agree with what Mr. Fuller had said, and as far as confusionary tactics, I definitely feel it is logical, definitely with permission, to ask any suspected or admitted white supremacists for a list of white supremacists that practice racism, white supremacy. And I've gotten a list, by the way. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you, Mr. Fuller, and thank you, Mr. Bobby. Okay,
we'll keep you on the line. Okay, thank you very much here. Okay, let's see here, Mr. Fuller. This is a second question from last week. I think the gentleman had 4 questions, and I told him that I would break it up because it was a long Gmail, which reminds me, those of you who do elect to write me Gmail, I've asked in the past, and I'm asking again, please do not write me a novel because it's not good for radio. It's too long for radio. I'll just put it that way. And I may not say it the way that you would like for it to say. So if you can't call, just make it short and sweet to the point so that Mr. Fuller can answer it. Okay, this is a second question from this gentleman that sent in an email. The second question is this. It says, Mr. Fuller, how do you respond to the claim that people are born homosexual and that this has been scientifically proven, that was in quotations, and that people cannot be influenced, and that people cannot be influenced or confused into engaging in anti-sex behavior?
Well, how I respond to it, according to the code, is that if they're born being, quote, unquote, anything, with one leg, homosexual or heterosexual, like I am, I think, a heterosexual. I don't have a tendency to want to do anything bodily, especially with a male. I was attracted to females as far back as I can remember. When I started getting sexual feelings of any kind, at first I didn't even know what was happening, but then I got, I heard I was in school by then, so I heard that people, stories about people, period, it was boys and girls. And we were always, I noticed that the girls would go into the girls' bathrooms at recess and all like that. And I say, oh, well, the girls, we don't all go to the same bathrooms. That's the first thing I noticed. I don't know when I started noticing it, but I noticed that's just the way it was. So, because they could have had it when I came into the world, it could have been just normal for girls and boys to go to the same bathroom. And so they said that that's a girl, and you're a boy. And I don't know exactly the date that happened, but so I sort of drifted into that path and stayed there. And then I started getting attracted to the girls in a different way that I wasn't attracted to the boys. So now, later on, I understood that sometimes boys get attracted to other boys and are not attracted to girls in that same way at all. And I wondered why that was, so I just came to the conclusion I had what you might call friends, boy friends, but I didn't have what you call girlfriends because they said, we kind of keep the girls and boys separate up to a point. And then we let them get together. But that usually is supposed to come from after you get out of school. You go to school first. Then you're taught, now it's time for you to start thinking about the girls. Well, I was thinking about the girls before anybody told me because I just had that attraction. I'm just talking about my own experience. But when I found out by watching some of my boy, quote-unquote, friends, one or two of them, I noticed they didn't want to be around me anymore. They sitting at, spend their weekends over at the girls' house, and they weren't girlfriends as I turned out to be myself, having a girlfriend. Or thinking that I had one, or should have one. But I noticed that they wanted to do all the things that girls do. So I kind of drifted away from them. Nobody told me to. It just, we had a different interest. On weekends, they would be over to the girls' house, doing what girls do, playing with the girls. And I didn't want to play with the girls, not the way that, they were playing with the girls. I didn't want to play the little girls' games and all like that. At one time, I knew the difference. I began to see a difference, perceive a difference, without even understanding. So in answer to the question, yeah, I can see how that can happen, and I can see how it can happen that if you're around girls, maybe it can happen both ways. You're just that way that you're attracted to girls right from the beginning, but in wanting to be a girl. And I began to understand that. Nobody told me, but I could perceive it just by observing. So, yes, people can be that way. I think it's possible. People can be a lot of different ways. Mm-hmm. But what it comes down to is what you do with the way that it is. It comes down to the doing part. And who does it benefit? And that's the way anybody is, not only about sex. You look at a person, first of all, and say that's a person. Then you say, what does a person do that is what? And this is where the code kicks in, takes care of everything. What does a person do that is of constructive value? Because it's going to be one or the other. There ain't no such thing as no in-between about that.
Okay.
Every move that you make has a constructive effect or a non-constructive effect.
Yes, sir.
So it just depends on what kind of move you make.
Okay.
That's the way to look at it. That's the codified way of looking.
Okay. Well, that comes to the conclusion of the first hour of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller. So we got to wrap it up. So those of you who have to go, thank you for listening, and hopefully we'll see you next week. But for those who are going to stay on for the second hour, including Brother Muko, which I have a question from the chat room for you, stay tuned for the second hour of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Coming up in 5 seconds.
Get the code book by going to producejustice.com.
Yes.
producejustice.com.
Okay, welcome back to the second hour of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And as he concluded the first hour about the book by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com to get the publication that he has written called the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, which you can get at producejustice.com. And speaking about producejustice.com, Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. will be on the Carl Nelson Show this Friday. That's right, Friday, June the 16th at 8 a.m. At 8 a.m., June the 16th. If that changes, it will be on the website. But as of right now, Mr. Fuller is scheduled to be on the Carl Nelson Show June the 16th. That's Friday at 8 a.m. So make yourself available to that to hear more of Mr. Fuller. Okay, and again, as a matter of fact, Mr. Fuller, why don't we speak about that book, your book? A lot of people have asked questions, even in the first hour, about some things that were in the book. Hey, talk about the book here for a few minutes before we continue on with the show.
Well, the book is designed, simply put, a textbook workbook for thinking, for speaking, and for acting. Thinking, thought, speech, and action for victims of the system of white supremacy. That's simply put. That's one of the titles. I don't call them subtitles because it's got 3 titles. The book has 3 titles. But that's the most explicit title. Explicit meaning right, telling you what the book is about, right in your face. A textbook workbook for thought, speech, and/or action for victims of white supremacy. If you don't think of yourself as being a victim of white supremacy, the book is not for you. It's a very expensive book, too, by the way. I tried to bring the price down, but being self-published and all the problems I have to go through to get the book published. And it's a very poorly book. It's a high price on a very poorly written book. That's my own evaluation. It's a very high price on that book. I told people when I first put it out, I wouldn't buy my book at that price. I've told people that. But at the same time, I'm on there right now saying I want people to buy the book because there are so few books, if any. They're getting to be more and more now. Since mine came out, I noticed that, about what black people can do. In fact, some books say just that on the cover, make it very explicit. Because I have a title like A Compensatory Counter-Racist Code. Well, that doesn't grab nobody. But there are some books that have titles like What a Black Person Should Do About Racism. That is the title of the book. What a Black Person Should Do About Racism. This is the book to get. Now, I haven't seen a book with that actually on the cover, but I've seen many similar books just in the last 3 or 4 years come out. My book came out originally in 1984. And but to get back to the core, I'm saying my book is about the same thing. It's addressed to victims of racism and what you can do about it as a victim of racism. Now, my book is very poorly written compared to some of the other books that are coming out now, I think, from what I've heard. And I say mine is one of the best of the counter-racist books that is very poorly written. It's still one of the best, but it's very poorly written. I could have done a much better job. When I turn the pages, I almost flinch. Well, you could have said this a whole lot better. And some people have pointed that out. Well, you could have said it. What you're saying is, makes sense, but you could have said it a lot better, and they are correct. And I always say that. And even when I'm on the air now talking about it, when I come off the air, I always say, well, you could have explained that a whole lot better than what you did. The way you explained that was a mess. That's what I'm saying to myself. So I know other people pick it up. But, they say that, in the societies I came up in, I always say, and it makes sense. That's another thing that I'm saying about myself. It makes sense that I have a kind of a crippled mind. Otherwise, I wouldn't be a victim of white supremacy. That's the mathematics. The only way you can be subject to white supremacy is you don't know how not to be. So that includes me, Fuller. I'm subject to the system of white supremacy. Now, why am I subject? Because I don't know how to be, other than that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm complaining about racism. Now, why am I complaining about racism? Because I'm subject to racism. Well, are you supposed to be, Fuller, subject to racism? No. Well, why are you subject to racism? You're not supposed to be. Because I don't know how to be anything else. I mean, I can't get around that.
Yes, sir.
I have inferior knowledge of what to do about racism. That's why I'm a victim of racism. That's the only way I could be. My knowledge of how to get rid of it is inferior. If we're using the word inferior, which we did in the last hour. Yeah, inferior means you don't know how to do something that you need to know how to do.
Yes, sir.
That's all.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we can get the book by going to producejustice.com.
Producejustice.com.
Okay. All righty. The number to call in to be a part of today's conversation is 516-453-9921. Make sure you press the number 1 button if you have a question. And if you are a first-time caller, do the same thing, but make sure that you give the call screener your name so that they can give that to me, and we'll move on from there. 2 points here. Brother Muko, who is still on the line, a question was asked, since you had mentioned that you have a list of white supremacists. A question was asked, what does he plan to do with that list? So I'm going to give you a moment to think about it, and I'll get you back in. Then, Mr. Fuller, somebody was speaking about when you addressed the homosexual or whatever acts were, mentioned something about something happened in Houston or whatever. I don't know. I haven't read the story. But some children were produced by a high-profile person in Houston, adopted, understand, see it's written here, they adopted 2 normal black children, but now the black children are sexually confused adults. and then I guess a couple of other movie stars that have done the same thing to their boys. I'm not going to mention the movie star's name, but if you join the chat room, you can find out who that is. That seems to be the result of that, Mr. Fuller. I'm asking it in a question about sexual confusion. Could you address that before we go on?
Now, here's how the code handles that. This whole thing about what people generally call gay pride and all like that, homosexuality. The reason it's talked about on this program and in the textbook at all is because the white supremacists have an agenda, and that is to cause as much confusion as they possibly can by any means as they possibly can when it comes to black people's sexuality, because it benefits them. So whatever will help cause confusion, that word confusion, very important. First of all, in any area of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. The white supremacists say the first order of business that white people should know to do when it comes to black people, confuse them in every area of activity. And since the white supremacists know for certain that sexuality of any so-called kind of sexuality is extremely powerful, get control of what black people do when it comes to sex and confuse them as much as you possibly can. Have them lead the sex parade if it's anything that they do sexually that is going to cause confusion, and get complete control of it and direct it in such a way that it will be supportive of the system of white supremacy. That is the objective of the white supremacists when it comes to black people, people of color, and sex. Cause as much confusion as you possibly can. Have their minds going in every direction, as many of them as you can think of. Keep adding to that LGBTQ. Keep adding alphabets. I recently heard there are two more that's been added. I and A, or A and I don't know what that is. I think it has something to do with artificial intelligence, which the white supremacists really, if there is such a thing, really want that to be a part of black people's sexuality, artificial intelligence. I mean, so that you can call millions of things if they can stretch it that far and cause confusion, millions of different types of sexuality. Why? Because it serves the purpose of the white supremacists. And what is the purpose of the white supremacists? To make white supremacists stronger and make black people weaker. That's anything that the white supremacists do. Not only in sex, but particularly in sex, but in religion, in politics, confusion. Why? Because the law of the universe is where you have confusion in a person's mind about anything, you can dominate that person.
Mm-hmm.
If you are the person who is doing the confusing. And in the matter of sex and black people, just like in sex, any other area of activity, politics, in the system of white supremacy cause confusion in politics among black people. And definitely, since sex is so strong, the sexual urge of one form or another, you get control of a person's sexual intentions, and it's real easy to jerk them around in all other areas of activity. How they entertain themselves and everything. It spills over in all of that. And what your focus becomes. I mean, people, you know, guys break out of jail because of sex. I want to get back to my woman, you know. Hey, this substitute sex in this prison and whatnot, that ain't me. Now, some people can stay in prison forever because everything that they ever want is right there with them. But there are other people, the average person, male with female, that's one of the first things that they take away from you. Hey, you're not going to be around no female. You're being punished. But to a guy who's been sent in another direction, he'll say, you just sent me to heaven when you sent me to jail.
Okay.
This is all I need. And not only that, I'm going to get fed and housing and board and everything, get an education while I'm doing it. So you ain't hurting me at all.
Yeah. Okay. This question here, Mr. Fuller, from the chat room, important question. The question is the original book in stock? I'd like that book for more references. So is the original book in stock, Mr. Fuller? The code
right
book.
Now, I have to find out more about that because that status is being changed. I think that comes with the set of 3. That's and that's the way it's only going to come with. That's the only way it's being distributed now, the 1984 edition. Some people say they prefer that edition, even to the 2016 expanded, revised edition, which is the principal core of the 3 volumes that are out here. They're all the same book, but the core of the 3 volumes is the 2016 edition of the compensatory code, and the other volume is
Jacoby Duquesne
is the 2014 edition, which is strictly a word guide, how to use words, what questions to ask. When other people use words.
Okay.
Very important book.
Yeah, Jacoby Duquesne asked that question about the original book. I was not aware that it came in a set, but that's good information to know. Brother Muko, if you're on the line, let me see. Did you? Somebody asked you a question about what do you plan to do with that list? Are you on the line?
Yeah, I'm still on the line. Thanks for the question, Mr. Bobby and Mr. Fuller. What I do with the list is I share it with non-white people that have an interest in the list. I make it aware that I have a list. If they have a list, we compare lists. It's all about sharing information and getting the truth, which Mr. Fuller talks about a lot.
Okay. All righty. Yeah. All righty. Triple X Rita asked that question and wanted to know what did you plan to do with the list. Okay, Brother Muko, I'll put you back on hold so you're still listening. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay. Let's see here, Mr. Fuller. I had another question before I get to Raymond. Don't forget when you call in, people, to give the call screener your name so I can get to you. This is a question for you, Mr. Fuller. It says, good morning. My question to you is, Mr. Fuller, what to do regarding the victim mentality and black people what would you say to a person who has a victim mentality and unwilling to change, stating that he is in fact a victim of white supremacy, therefore there are many things beyond their control? Thank you.
A victim mentality. Well,
Yeah.
first of all, I want to know what a victim mentality is, because I have a victim mentality. I'm a victim. So my mental, meaning I'm using my brain, am I a victim? And the answer is yes. Neely Fuller is a victim of white supremacy, so I have a victim mentality, according to the code, in knowing that I'm a victim and believing what I know to be the truth. The system of white supremacy has victims. Now, what does that mean to Neely Fuller? Well, the logical question is Neely Fuller a victim of white supremacy? Seeking the truth now, always start with the truth, yes or no. Fuller, are you one of the victims of white supremacy, if white supremacy has victims? So most people will conclude, oh yeah, white supremacy has victims, it manufactures victims. Okay, Neely Fuller, are you one of them? Yes or no? And tell the truth. And when I look around for the evidence says, yeah. Okay, what makes you a victim? You have been mistreated on the basis of your color. That's what makes you a victim. Now, yes or no, do you fit that? Do you fit that description, Neely Fuller? Do you have that type of victim mentality? Yes, I have that type of victim. I think about victim mentality means I think about it. Am I subject to white people who mistreat me in any area of activity at any time, directly, indirectly, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war? Neely Fuller, are you a victim of white supremacy in any one or more of those areas or not? Economics, education, etc., etc. Yes or no? And the answer is yes. Yes, according to what? According to the evidence. That's the answer.
Mm-hmm.
The evidence. Look for the evidence. So do you have a victim mentality? Yes. I'm aware of it. If that's what you mean by victim mentality, I'm aware of the truth. I am indeed a victim of white supremacy. Then the next question would be, should you be one?
Okay.
Or if you want to go the code route strictly, why are you one? Well, somebody made that decision before I was born that I was going to be a victim when I come into the world.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Going back to the book, see, the book is generating a lot of questions this morning, a lot of interest, which is good, which is why people should, on the line, you can get the book by going to producejustice.com. A question that just came up here, Mr. Fuller, maybe you did address it already, but I just pulled it up here. It says, when will the I guess speaking about the original, when will it be in stock? The original. Do you know when it'll be in stock?
No, I don't have that information there. But the status of the original is going to be changed.
Okay.
And I don't have that information yet.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Because of publication difficulties, mostly dealing with finances and et cetera. I think that's the reason.
All righty.
And that book, it's a specialty book, and but because it's 1984 and really it's obsolescent. It's not obsolete. It's still an excellent book in the minds of many people. But the 2016 edition is the focal book now, even though a lot of people say that the original book was better written. And I've looked through the book myself, just glanced through it on occasion, and a lot of things were said in a better way in the 1984 edition, even though in the 2016 edition it was said in a different way. But in the minds of many people, they said, I made something that was simple more complicated. And I kind of think they are correct. So it just depends on what the individual reader thinks.
Okay.
Some people say they like the original better because I said more with fewer words.
Yes, sir. Okay, I just got notice from the legal team, Mr. Fuller, that, and for the persons that are listening, and for you particularly, Jacoby Tukane, too, I just was informed that the book had run out. The original has run out, but it's on back order, and that it should be available in about a month, if I heard everything correctly. So sometime this is June, sometime in July, maybe August, the book, since it's back ordered, will be up, and when it is, we'll let you know. But thank you for your questions for the book, which is why, again, why it is important to have the book. Some people really, as you were just stating, Mr. Fuller, some people really want that 1984 edition. They really want it. I don't know about the well-written part, but they want it and they're asking for it. So that's to be addressed. Matter of fact, before we go on, let's take a quick break so we can go right through the calls. You're listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, and we thank you for listening. Now, to get in contact with the remaining 30 minutes of the show, just dial this number, 516-453-9921. Press the number 1 button, and I'll try to get to you between the Gmails and the phone calls. If you have a question, just press the number 1 button. If you are a first-time caller, do the same, but make sure you give the call screener your name. You can also contact the show to me by my Gmail address. That is numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. And, of course, you can join the chat room by going to blogtalkradio.com. Then you want to click on where it says programs. And then when you do that, click on where it's the Produce Justice show that you want. When you click it on, then the chat room becomes available for you to get into. And there's been some very good questions in the chat room today. Still learning. I like that. And Freedom Culture Tech, good morning. Glad you made it in there. Okay, thank you. Back to the show. Remember, Mr. Fuller will be on, mark this down, the Carl Nelson Show this coming Friday, which is June the 16th at 8 a.m. Mr. Fuller on the Carl Nelson Show, June 16th at 8 a.m. And you can get that also at producejustice.com. Robert and the team have set the site up so that you can hear the show. So make sure you do that. Okay. All righty. Let's go to Raymond. Raymond in Georgia. Get ready, Raymond. I'm getting ready to get over there. Okay, Raymond in Georgia. Okay, Raymond, you're on.
Yeah, Mr. Bobby, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Mr. Fuller, good morning. Yeah, I have a VGQ and a question. My VGQ is, I'm going with Mr. Fuller. I mean, I'm suspecting everybody as long as they're able. I'm not taking a list with Mr. Moko. Okay. I got a question now, Mr. Fuller. I'm working in a establishment where we have a meeting at night. So is it logical for me to ask the question, is anybody being mistreated or not getting the help they want, and then turn around and put my hands up? Is that logical? I could take a yes or no for the answer.
Is it logical to ask people, is anybody being mistreated, like you're on a job or something?
Yeah, yes, on a job, yeah, at night.
Yes, it's logical. Yes, that's a part of the code.
And then I say, I'm going to be, I'll put my hands, raise my hand up same time. If it's logical for me to ask a question and raise my hand up.
Well, if I understand your question, according to the code, is it logical in any circumstance to first get an understanding with people? There's two questions that you ask.
Yeah.
Is anybody being mistreated?
Yeah.
If you're talking to more than one person or even one person, are you being mistreated?
Yeah, more than one person.
If you're talking to one. Yes, you can ask, are you being mistreated? And then you get in, that's the lead-off question. That's the basic question. Are you being mistreated? And then the second question is, after you get an answer to the first question, are you getting the help that you need?
Yeah, I understand that, Mr. Fuller, but my thing is that I'm going to be one of the person holding up my hand and saying, yes, I am being mistreated and not getting the help that I wanted. Is it logical for me to ask the question and then turn around holding my hand up?
Well, if you are the person who perceives yourself as being mistreated, and you're talking to someone else.
Yeah, I'm talking to. I have to talk to a group of people each night.
Okay, you're talking to a group of people, and your question is, do you tell them to ask that question?
Them.
You ask them.
I ask them. Yeah, I'm presenting a question, but in return, I'm holding my hand up as being part of the person, part of the people that are being mistreated and being not getting the help that I wanted on the job. So I want to know if that's logical for me to ask the question and then, in return, hold my hand up as one of the victims that's not getting the help I needed.
Well, if I understand what your question is, it's always logical to find out whomever is being mistreated. I mean, that's in any setting. Because nobody's supposed to be mistreated. Yeah. And everybody who needs help is supposed to get the most constructive help that they can get. That's the conclusion you come to when you walk up on a room full of strangers. Is anybody being mistreated? That's the first question. And the other question is, does anybody need help and they're not getting it? And almost all hands in every situation I've ever been in go up on that one. And then you find out by asking other questions, what kind of help do you need? Is this help available? If it's not, why? You can ask, that's when you get into the thousands of questions. And every question has to be answered. This is how problems are solved. That's the law of the universe. I mean, it's not difficult at all. It's very simple. I mean, do you have a problem? That's a question. Is somebody causing the problem? That's a question. And you don't move to the second question until you fully answer the first one. Otherwise, you have what? If you move to the second question before answering the first one, you're going to get what? Confusion.
Confusion.
And that's not the correct way to solve problems.
Mm-hmm.
You can't solve problems by having confusion. You get rid of the confusion. That's the mechanics of the reason for having questions and answers.
Okay.
Because all problems are what? According to the code, all problems are solved. All problems are solved through the process of questions and answers. How many questions and how many answers? As many as it takes.
Yes, sir.
It might take 10,000 answers to get to the answer to one question. It might take 10,000 more questions to get to the answer. There is an answer to every question. It's just a matter of finding out what that answer is. And the only way you can get to what that answer is by more questions.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Raymond in Georgia, thank you very, very much for listening. Brother Muko, your question has, that list question has generated more questions. I'm going to give you a minute to think about this. It's been in the chat room. The question was asked, since you gave that list of these people, what do they do with that list? So it's just to name names. I'll cue you in a little bit later for your answer if you know the answer to that question. Good question, people. Good question. From the chat room, or rather from the Gmail, let's see. Okay, I'm not supposed to mention this person's name. It says, Mr. Fuller, I want to know Mr. Fuller's opinion according to the code of dealing with a suspected racist neighbor who is white, has mental problems, and has been harassing us for at least 2 months. 2 of my relatives have gotten into verbal arguments with this neighbor, and it almost turned physical. We may consider moving because the intensity of the harassment has been high. The police have been called, and our housing authority said the person isn't supposed to be there. But the police have done nothing. Also, there are 2 mixed couples in our neighborhood, white male, black female, and white female, black male, and they, the couple, have done nothing about it, which is why I am biased toward mixed relationships, because liberal Hollywood loves to make specifically black-labeled non-white males hate all or most black-labeled non-white females. Your response, Mr. Fuller?
It depends on all the details of what goes on from day to day and what these incidents are and all like that. And like I said, there shouldn't be any arguments, period. Now, what's the difference between an argument and a conversation? The conversation consists of questions and answers. That's the way to control it, so you don't have an argument. So you talk to whomever there is that you can talk to, find out, get information. Whom can you talk to? Like right now, you're talking directly, indirectly to Neely Fuller. So, according to the code, what I would do, I would find out. I need information now. What is supposed to be done? What is the correct thing to do? Because that's what it's going to come down to in what you call a quote-unquote court of law. There's supposed to be a code for everything, all right? Which there is. The white supremacists have a code for everything. So in a system of white supremacy, you find out what does the code call for you to do in this particular situation. Do you talk to the neighbors at all about it? That's a question. See, all problems are solved through the process of questions and answers. So you have to find out, because what they call different states have different laws. Different cities have different laws. Different towns have different laws. That's what I've been told. So you just find out what the law requires you to do. And somebody might say, well, they don't have a law. Well, now, that's information that you need to know. And when that happens, if it would happen to me, I say, why isn't there a law? Well, somebody's got to make one, even if it's just temporary, because I have a problem, and people are not supposed to have problems. And once you become aware of the problem, there's supposed to be a solution to every problem. And somebody is supposed to know what that solution is. So you have to find out who is the somebody. They say, well, we have a counselor or whatnot. How do you get it? What's the phone number? In these modern days, I mean, they say you can communicate. Communication is right at your fingertips. So you find out who is supposed to make the decision about whatever that problem is. Who makes the final decision? And that's who you want to talk to. You may not know who the person is, but that's what you find out. By doing what? Asking questions. That's what I would do. I had a gun that I wanted to move at one time. And I didn't, so I said, well, follow the code. They got all kind of codes that deal with guns. Who do you talk to if you're going to put a gun in your car and take it somewhere? Because that's what I wasn't going to walk down the street with it. Somebody might misinterpret that is my intention. So I say, but if I got one in my car, that may be illegal. So if I'm going to take a gun from one point to another, because I'm moving, how do I do it? Find out from somebody who knows. Duh. You don't start arguing with nobody or nothing. I mean, you find out who is supposed to know what to do and what not to do, and that is the bottom line. And anytime anything comes up that's connected with it, go right back to that person who is supposed to know what to do. Every time, even if it's 1,000 times, find out who the person is. Because there's a person somewhere who is supposed to know what you are supposed to do. And the person may get weary of you. Are you here again? You were here this morning at 8 o'clock. And now you're back today, same day, and it's noon, with the same problem that you're having with your neighbor. And you say, yes, I'm back, sir, because this is the place where everybody says the problem is supposed to be solved.
Yes, sir.
Now, until you tell me something different, sir, I might be back here in an hour or in 2 hours. But because I am following the law. I'm following the law. I don't know what everybody else is doing. And I'm following the law as it has been given to me. Now, if there's another law that hasn't been given to me, I want to know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to use you, sir or ma'am, as a reference. If anybody has any questions, ask you about it. You know all about it because I'm telling you.
Okay. From the...
Now, that's what I would do.
Mm-hmm.
See what I mean? In answer to the person's question. Find out who is supposed to settle all of this by name. Find out the person's name and phone number and get in touch with them, and that's all you get in touch with until that person tells you, don't get in touch with me no more. Call this number. And so you call that number and turn it all over to them because somebody is supposed to handle it until they tell you, you handle it any way that you want to. And then you want that in writing with their signature on it. And make sure that that person is the person that everybody says you go to, because that's the only thing you're going to have when you go to court. Because that's eventually, if it keeps going, that's where it's going to wind up. I wouldn't move until I did just that. That's the codified procedure. Find out who has the bottom line, and that's the only person you want to talk to.
Okay. All right, thanks for the question. We'll go on. The chat room has been just dynamite today. And one of the things that came up with respect to the book and why the book is necessary to get at producejustice.com, 888 Rita, or Rita 888, wrote this. She said that the word guide defines the terms good and bad. Suggest we use them with caution. Maybe replace that word with constructive and non-constructive. That's a good point. Because the use of words good and bad, she said, throws her off. It's like saying fair and unfair. I don't know if many remember, but I remember I asked Mr. Fuller about the term fair, and he broke it down. He broke it down, what fair means, what it really means. It's really outstanding. But good point, Rita 888. Get the book at producejustice.com. Let's go into Canada, and we're going to go to Boo. Boo, Canada. You are on with Mr. Fuller. Are you there, Boo? Okay. You're not on there, so okay. Now this person that's calling from the area code 816, I don't have your name, but your hand is up, and also in 647 prefix, I don't have your name up here. Let me see if I can go to. I don't usually like to do this, but I'm gonna do this one since your hand is up. 816. Okay, good morning. You're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Yeah, hi, Bobby. Yeah, the automated system didn't ask me what my name was, so
okay, alrighty.
Yeah. Anyway, here's the question for Mr. Fuller. Here lately in this country, there's been a question of whether or not America is a racist country or not. And I think, Mr. Fuller, you said that the white supremacists are very, you said you've defined them as being masters deceivers, which means that they are able to make something that's happening make it seem like there's nothing happening at all. So when it comes to racism, the white supremacists pretty much say, well, what are you black people talking about? There's no racism going on here. So is that true, Mr. Fuller, that the white supremacists, they're masters at making something that's actually going on, making it seem like it's not happening at all?
Sure. They're the greatest magicians, magic makers in political history. So what is magic? It's something that's an illusion. They will talk about justice. They'll drive you under the table talking about justice. But the white supremacist is anti-justice. And they will make you think that there's such a thing as an American. There's never been a person that's an American, ever. What's an American? An American is a person that practices justice, and nobody can practice justice in the system of white supremacy. So they even got black people saying America mistreats people. You got to watch words. What is an American? Get that straight first. Americans do not exist and never have. There's no evidence of an American ever existing. There are people who are called Americans. All right? That doesn't say that that's what they are. I'm called an American. That's not what I am. I'm a victim of white supremacy. That's the only government on the planet. The evidence shows that. There are a whole lot of so-called governments. These are just words. They don't have any meanings at all. The English government. What is English? I speak English, broken English, if you want to call it that. Why is it broken? Because I don't speak the original English. They used to call it what? The King's English. And then people told me, don't obey the king. So are you obeying the king? This is a question. If you try to speak the King's English, English the way it's spoken. I even have a dictionary on my shelf right now. It says, the Dictionary of the American English Language. Well, what's an American? American English? And you rebelled against the English? That's what they say Americans did. And then what's an American and what's an Englishman? And what's the English language that's different from the American English language? American English? What are we talking about here? We got some confusion going on. See, I'm talking about words. That's how I have a word guide.
Yes,
that
sir.
gives us some kind of indication of what questions to ask when people use certain words. And one thing that I keep trying to do on this program, and is still on this program, not paid attention to at all, out of habit, and that is the use of the term American. People keep saying America has mistreated black people. Black people say that all the time. That's a trap, because it's not true. White supremacists mistreat black people, not Americans. Get your words straight. For the umpteenth time, don't ever do that. Don't ever say Americans did anything, because they don't exist. That's a concept, like the counter-racist code. When people ask me, Fuller, are you a counter-racist? You talk about being against racism all the time. Are you a counter-racist? I said, yeah, I talk about being a counter-racist, and that's what I'm trying to be, because that's what I'm supposed to be. But am I actually a counter-racist? And the answer is no. That's what I mean by paying attention to words.
Yes, sir.
I'm trying to be a counter-racist. Well, I've never been a counter-racist. Why? There's no evidence of it where I have countered racism. Counter means you have eliminated racism. Has Fuller eliminated racism? No. Well, don't call me a counter-racist or an anti-racist, because you don't have no proof of that. Why?
Yes, sir.
Because racism is still here. That's why.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. I have to ask you this. Mr. Fuller, we have a few more calls on the line. Do you mind if we go over the limit, maybe about 10 minutes? Would that be okay with you?
I don't mind if it's
okay
with everybody else.
Robert.
If it's not counter to what somebody else wants.
Okay. Robert, Mr. Fuller has agreed to go over 10 minutes, so give us 10 minutes so we can answer these questions here. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, Robert. And thank you, Chris. Before I ask that question, a question was in the chat room. Do victims of the prisoners of war really have the ability to choose, Mr. Fuller?
Do victims of prisoners of war really have what?
Do we have the ability to choose as prisoners of war?
To choose what? Not being prisoners of war?
I'm just asking the question that was in the on the chat. Do we have the ability to choose as victims of war? That's all.
Depends on. We have the ability to choose some things and not others. You know, we have the ability to choose when there are things that the white supremacists allow us to choose. We can make choices about it. They allow me to talk against white supremacy. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking. If I want to use that as an example, and I just did, I chose to use that as an example. I chose that. I had the ability to choose what answer I was going to give when I was asked this question. So it comes down to choose what? We have the ability to choose, yeah. You have, if you're able to choose something and you prove it by doing it, that's when you know you got the ability to do it. I have the ability to answer that question, the ability to choose to answer the question. So I did what? I answered the question. So that proves that I had the ability to do it. Depends on what you mean by choosing. What are you talking about? You have to go into. See, that calls for more questions until we finally get the final answer.
Mm-hmm.
Do I have the ability to choose? Yes. Okay.
People who are in the chat room or people who want to get on the chat, I'm telling you, this is not hyperbole. There's been some very good conversations about that, in particular about the word guide and about the book Mr. Fuller has written that you can get at producejustice.com. And the word guide is in, I think it's So Does a Trio now, if I understand it. If I don't understand that, correct me. But it's important, period, that you get the books at producejustice.com. Brother Muko, I think you're back on again to answer that question. Wait a minute. Okay, Brother Muko, are you there?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
What we do is my care units that I have throughout the United States and through overseas, we do what's called intelligence to the best of our ability. That means we look into the families and look deeper into the situation. I'll just leave it at that.
Oh, good. That's what they do with the list. Okay. Thank you, Brother Muko. Thank you so much. Okay, I'll put you back on the hold. Okay, Boo, Canada, I think you're back. Let me see if I can get you in there, Boo. Okay, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Okay, Boo, are you back?
Yeah, I'm back now. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I got cut off here. Got cut off. So I got a question about words. You know, it's something we've been talking about the whole morning. But words and questions. I noticed that when I flip the tables at work, you know, when I'm dealing with white supremacists, and I start asking them questions, especially constructive questions, they start to tell me that they don't know. But when it comes to questions about music or what we did last night or, you know, fun stuff, you know, they like to talk about that. And they like to have me talking about that. But when it comes to productive stuff, I never hear that. So it's just something that I noticed the last couple of months, last couple of weeks, ever since I've been trying to apply the compensatory code. So, but I just wanted to know from Mr. Fuller that what's the next stage now, because they don't answer my questions now. And so, what do you do when they stop answering your questions? when you're asking them.
Okay. Ms. Fuller?
You talk to people who can ask the question. It depends on that's why it's called the United Independent System. Everybody makes their own decisions about what they are going to do from one minute to the next. It's an individual thing, and that's how you look at it. You are an individual. You can't talk for everybody else. You can just talk as an individual about what your intentions are and why you have them and all that. And you ask other people, the way you interact with all other people is questions and answers. So if people don't want to talk to you about solving problems, the only way to solve problems is through questions and answers. Then you just establish that and just try to find someone who you can talk to, whether they're white or non-white, who is about problem solving. That's the code requirement. You know, you might have to go through 500 people to get to one person who will talk about problem solving, if that's what the person agrees to talk about, problem solving, because you're always supposed to be, if you communicate with anybody, according to the code, about problem solving. All of your conversations should be about problem solving.
Problem
Why?
solving.
Because there are plenty of problems to be solved.
Oh, righty. All right, thank you, Boo, from Canada. Last question. This comes from Ross Amin, Mr. Fuller. He said this. Mr. Fuller, I have noticed that many white people will stop the conversation with a black person when the conversation gets to the work of how to actually solve problems involving people. Mr. Fuller, they seem to teach this tactic to their children and to us. Why?
If they're white supremacists, it's to make the system of white supremacy strong and keep it strong. That's why. That's the answer. White supremacists are in the business of what? White supremacy. And how do you keep white supremacy going? It's by following the code of white supremacy. And what is the code of white supremacy? Don't do anything that's going to allow black people to not be subject to the system of white supremacy. Whatever it takes, that's the white code.
Mm-hmm.
You've got color in your skin, and I am a white person. I'm supposed to dominate you in every move that you make, in every plan that you make, in every area of activity, at all times, forever. In economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. I am a white supremacist. And if you are a person of color, I am supposed to dominate you and mistreat you in each and every one of those areas of activity at all times, in all places, in all circumstances, whatever happens. That's the doctrine of white supremacy. That's what racism is for.
Okay. Well, you know what? We're going to leave it at that, Mr. Fuller. That's a good way. Don't forget it. And thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, callers. Thank you, chatters. This was an outstanding conversation day, in my opinion. Yes, we do need to get better. Myself, in particular, need to get better, but we'll try to do better next week. But thank you for calling. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Don't forget to get the books at producejustice.com. The last word goes to you, Mr. Fuller.
Thank everybody for participating, and hopefully for using whatever we do here to do what? To produce a constructive result. ProduceJustice.com.
Okay. Everybody have a good week, and we hope to see you here from you next week. Bye.